You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast. Stories of overcoming obstacles and finding self-empowerment with Sharice Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that has shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Hi everyone, this is episode 53 and I did promise you an amazing guest, and that is indeed what I have this week. So I have the amazing Natalia all the way from the US speaking to you today. Hello Natalia, thank you for joining me.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And for anyone that doesn't know who you are, please could you give your official introduction?
Yes, I'm Natalia Richardson, the owner of Meteor Transformation Coaching, and I help leaders lead a life and business that feels as good as it looks.
Amazing. And it's so funny, isn't it? Like how the internet works. And we were just saying before we jumped on about how we can be a million miles away and still connect. And I feel like that's kind of how we sort of cross paths, was through social media. It's just
Yeah.
funny, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
And whereabouts in the US are you at the moment?
I am currently located in Colorado.
Amazing. Okay, so I am in Kent, which is just outside of London, in case I don't know if you know the geographics of England, but it's almost London, but not quite. But yes, amazing. So I love obviously everything that you post, and I get a real sense of strong female energy, but equally that divine feminine energy comes through for me in everything that you do, which I love. And that's why I was like, yes, I love, and I also love how vulnerable you are with sharing of your own experiences. And that was one of the reasons why I reached out to you to jump on, because I was like, this is really the ethos of this podcast. So yeah, I'd love for you to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you embarked on this journey to become who you are now.
Thank you. Yeah, so I have owned my business or been doing this about 5 years now. And as far back as I can remember, I was always extremely empathetic to a fault, but where I would very much disconnect from myself back then, and I didn't realize. And I was told that my emotions were, bad. It was too much, right? If you feel too much, you should care more about yourself. And so then I'd go hard left and do exactly that in like a very detrimental way to myself. Um, and I was coming to a crossroads where I was in a very just unhealthy relationship about, wow, it's probably like 12 years ago-ish now. But it was very verbally abusive, and I got into weightlifting, and I didn't realize back then it was how I would want, like, was trying to heal my relationship to the masculine. And I fell in love with the strength and then understanding my body more and how to nourish it. And that really, I would say, ignited my path to go a lot deeper, not just in the physical, but spiritual. And um, so I guess longer story shorter, I still do compete in bodybuilding now, but my relationship to my body is completely different. And the understanding of, the divine feminine and masculine plays into that as well. But that path led me to a moment where I had had my second child and had been wanting to help people on a deeper level. And I just decided to go all in on myself. I started with just wellness coaching while I was beginning my healing journey. And I was still in a place where I hadn't really tapped into my worth and just had a lot of root work to work through. And as that transpired, I realized that, every person that I talked to, really below the surface, there was so much unhappiness and lack of authenticity that they wanted to express, but were afraid to. And so many people weren't stepping into this innate power that they had. And so combined with the work that I had been doing, I started transforming that into my business to work with leaders, because let's face it, social media, everybody looks like they might have the house and the car and the finances, but behind the scenes, they're snappy in their relationship and they're lacking joy. And all the reasons they started this business is actually what's taking the brunt of the stress that they're living in. And I wanted to be the person to help them realize they could actually have both. And my story intertwines with a lot of like plant medicine has been an advocate for me. I don't think that that's necessarily for everybody, but for me, it's helped me really go deeper in my healing journey. And I had a lot of wounds around the masculine, and also I'd say the wild woman. Like, I've always been really passionate and fiery, but I silenced her because it was wrong and it was shameful. And all of those things are said to be wrong. So about 2.5 years ago, I went through a divorce in 2020, and there was a lot of confusion and seeing repetitions of patterns and things there, and trying to gain love from my family, and just a whole lot of things. And about 2.5 years ago, I just had this really defining moment where I said, do I believe any of this? Like, is any of this really me? And I just started shedding almost everything that I realized wasn't actually aligned with me, wasn't a truth of mine. And I did lose a lot of people in the process. I mourned actually my relationship with my parents, which recently has had a lot of healing, which has been a beautiful journey as well. But I truly started stepping into my power, and that's when my business began to explode. It's when I started to actually, like you said, share really deeply, because there was no shame there anymore. I'd finally like forgiven and healed myself and realized all of these things that were the darkness, the shadows, right? They were actually my power. And so why was I afraid of them? That was a beautiful thing. And thus now that kind of leads you to where I am now in my business and who I am. But that's a condensed version of what got me to where I am today.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And it sounds so beautiful. And I think it's so crazy, isn't it, that our hardest moments are the moments that define us and make us so different to everyone else, especially in these spaces where we're leading businesses and stuff. It's those hard things that shape us. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, isn't it? It's like the alchemizing of the pain into the power and the light and the transcendence and all of the wonderful gifts that you have. And it's really funny that you mentioned was it 2020 that you said that you had the divorce? Yeah, that was my moment too, where I had a real awakening of like, just I feel like the pandemic did that for me, because I was running at 100 miles an hour. I was in constant burnout, overwhelm, like just trying to overachieve, because that was my survival mechanism. Similar to you, I had, wounded masculine energy. I would say that I was heavily in toxic masculine energy my whole life, out of survival. And then I kind of hit a wall in the pandemic, and I was like, gosh, what do I do now? And I had to really face my darkest demons and heal from the inside out. So yeah, I completely relate to everything you said, and even down to like losing people just based on my own growth and setting boundaries, and yeah, really understanding who I was, because I think I was always a persona and not my truest self. And I think that's really where that healing comes from, doesn't it? And I think even you probably find this with clients too, that a lot of people don't know who they are, and it's because they've been shape-shifting their whole life to meet either society's expectations or what their family wanted them to be or whatever. So then when they actually sit with themselves in the stillness, I think that's when we can allow ourselves to, well, we can tune in, can't we, and find who we truly are. But I would love to know more as well. You mentioned the plant medicine thing. I'd love to know more how you kind of fell into that, and what the takeaways have been from that. I've not actually had anyone on to speak about it, so it'd be really interesting to kind of hear a bit more about that.
Okay. So like backstory on that, actually, probably around the time I was 16 to let's say 20, you could call myself like a classic hippie. I just did all the things, but it was extracurricular. It was running wild. And looking back, I'm like, wow, there were so many opportunities. I could have like had so much depth, right? But I wasn't in that space at the time. So there was fear and healing that went along with being in a spot where I really wanted to dive back into the medicine to utilize it for its actual true purpose, which is for healing and expansion, right? So I would say the biggest transformation, and I'm planning to go sit with her again, hopefully soon this year. But last summer, I went and sat with Aya for like a week, and it blew my heart open in the deepest but best ways possible. And when I speak to it, I will never tell people that it was easy. It was one of the hardest, like there was a particular night that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever journeyed through, but it brought so much healing. Like it was worth that. And she basically took me to a place where I felt like I was watching almost every quote unquote wrong thing or person I'd hurt or thing that I was like shameful of. And I was in this spiral, just looking at it. And it kind of stripped me of everything in that moment. I surrendered. And in the moment of surrender, I felt this overwhelming ability to forgive, but also part of the work I do with people's love, the inner child, right? The root work. And I was able to actually see it and feel myself healing these moments and these patterns. And I could like very clearly see where so many things stemmed from. And I could feel myself healing for my children and for my mother. And it was just this incredible moment after a complete surrender of like releasing the shame and forgiveness and seeing the humanness in all of us, right? Like the people that we could hold anger at for doing things to us. Really, it's for us if we look at it in a different way. And also they're human, right? They have their own wounds, they have their own things. And I felt I was able to be in a better, no, I guess I don't know how else to say it, but reborn. I felt reborn. Everything was new of that moment because I was able to see the work that I was actually doing with people and in myself in almost this tangible, vibrant way. And I could feel the cells in my body change and my connection to the earth and to everybody in that room. And it just brought forth so much. And the months after, there was a ton of integrating and a lot more shedding and a lot more rebirthing. And I dove really deep into my feminine. I think it's the deepest I've ever gone. And I did notice something. I felt almost, like I said, I'm a bodybuilder, I compete. And I felt this resistance. I was still working out, but I felt extreme resistance towards it. And I realized it was because the feminine felt so good to just be bathing in her like fully for the first time in my life that I was like resisting against anything that was masculine. And so I got to a point where I was like, you see feminine marketing and all of these things, right? With women that do the work we do. And I had my moment that was like, no, you can be both. So I believe in the divine union of masculine and feminine as it pertains to business and leadership in life. And that is what I teach. But that whole journey got me to there where I finally was able to intertwine both and be able to very easily flow in between. And that was another one of the greatest gifts that particular journey brought me.
Gosh, I love that so much. Like the whole way through, I was agreeing and I was like agreeing, but I put myself on mute because otherwise I'd have been like, the whole way through. But I love that so much. And I think, again, I've had a similar experience in terms of my own healing journey. Now, I've not journeyed into plant medicine, but I'm really tethering on the edge of it at the moment because I feel like so much is coming up from speaking with people that's really drawing me into this space. And I think what I know for sure is I needed to heal as much as I have done separately before I dive in, because I feel like the purge would have been like taking my soul probably. But I really feel like I resonated deeply with you on the feminine having the space and then almost pushing out the masculine a little bit because she's finally had the room. Like I definitely had my own experience of that. And I feel like that was in 2020 when I first started to heal. Those years that followed, maybe 2 years after, that was really me kind of almost eradicating the masculine energy because I was like, no, you've taken up too much space for too long. I can't have you here. And then I feel like last year was the year I kind of found how to sort of
Mm,
almost find the harmony. And I feel like even this year has been like the tightening of the notch in that, of feeling that real synchronicity. And I think it's one of those things that will constantly ebb and flow. And I think especially when you come from a trauma background, there's always that element, isn't there, of like the shadow creeping up again. And I feel
mm,
like that is almost the essence of the journey, though, isn't it? That we're always going to be met with those little shadowy spaces as we grow. And I think for
mm.
me, I feel like that's the beauty, because even over the weekend, I felt a little bit like limiting beliefs popping up. And I'm into astrology, so I know that it was because the South Node was conjunct Cancer moon, and that affects me because I'm such a fire sign that any water moons, I'm like, ah. But those purging, I was like, yeah, I mean, and then today I woke up with the moon in Leo, which is my sign. I'm double Leo. So I was like, yeah, feeling good again today. And I was like, but that was because I feel good today as a result of, you know, allowing those emotions to come to the surface and seeing them and not necessarily doing anything with them either. Whereas before, I think when I was in that real healing phase, I was trying to unpick everything. And I think almost that became a little bit toxic of me, because I've been such an overachiever that I was like, how do I find the root of it? Whereas I feel like now, again, talking about that synchronicity of the both the union that you were saying, I can identify, I can sit with it, I can be and understand that there's a route out of it, that I don't necessarily have to do particularly anything apart from observe. And I feel like that was a nice moment for me today to wake up, and I felt very peaceful. And I was like, yeah, good job. I was like, good job, Charisse. That was good work. Which I think is a reminder of obviously the work that we do, because equally I do the inner child work with my clients too, because I'm always doing it for me. And I think that this is where it's so potent, isn't it? But I guess on that kind of conversation, what would you say the real key wounds or like limiting beliefs have been in your life that you've had to face over and over?
Um, Definitely the masculine. It was like attracting the same types of people. And my voice, I will tell you, that was one of the hardest things for me to hear. Like, it was extremely difficult, but it was being silenced. And I can see it all the way back to some sexual trauma when I was around 7. And I can trace all the way back there now, but it was this repetitive space of attracting people that were controlling, because I equated control to love, but then also feeling like I was silenced. And so I like eventually leave or run, and it would just repeat. That's one of the ones that really came up for me. And again, the people pleasing, like the being submissive to a fault. And I could see now, like a lot of that was, if I didn't care, I would disassociate, right? It wouldn't hurt. If I don't care, it doesn't matter. If I don't care, it doesn't hurt, just like the how you spoke a lot to like being in that toxic masculine, that I can do everything, the hyper independence, right? So those have been two really, really big things for me that I realized were just a repetitive pattern. But also the moment that like I dove into that and actually could see that, it stopped, right? I could actually see where it was coming from and understood the root, and was able to go back and love that, the version of me who needed that. And also I might use my voice to a fault now. It might have taken the complete opposite, direction. But again, as a woman, I want women to see that they can be bold and they can use their voice, and they don't have to be shameful, and they can be in their feminine or sexual or whatever calls to them, but doing it from a place that is honoring who they are. Like they are the queen in
Mm.
their life. And so I had all those traits, but it was just from a place where I didn't know my worth or was honoring myself. And so again, just transmuting that into power. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I speak on this a lot, and I feel like that masculine independence and all of the things we're talking about, that's the survival, isn't it? Like that is the survival that we've been conditioned to sort of shapeshift into in the world that we're in, that
Mhm.
patriarchal society. And it's so sad, isn't it? Like I take time now to sit with that sometimes and be like, gosh, I'm so sorry that to my inner child, that you felt like that was the only way you could get through it. And I think even the wounded feminine is maybe, I don't know for yourself, but for me, seeing the women in my life be submissive and silence themselves, as you said, And we are learning through, observing, aren't we, at that young age? So we don't know any better. And I guess, well, for you being a parent, especially as well, you're thinking like this shift and these healing that I'm doing is affecting my lineage. And, you are leading by example now, which is so beautiful.
Thank you. And how you spoke to the wounded feminine. I realized that although I had a lot of wounded masculine that I could see pouring out, I was living in wounded feminine. Like I was very much the quiet, the submissive. And my mom, same way, like my grandmother, same way. And that was actually what ended up being one of the most healing conversations I never thought I would have with my mom. Like I said, our relationship shifted in this last year, and it was like her finally using her voice to me, and it was all the things I knew but she had never actually like spoke to, and we were able to have that deep conversation and see that like I also probably brought up things in her by being the one who shifted all of that and being the one who's doing what I'm doing. So yeah, I completely agree.
Cycle breakers. I had a similar situation last year with my mum, actually. And I feel like my mum is very much a different version of what she was when I was growing up. I feel like she's evolved, and as she's become happier, she's become more present as we've gotten older. And but there was one sort of disagreement that we'd had in the summer around my birthday. Actually, it was on my birthday, and she responded in an avoidant way, which she used to do when I was younger, and she didn't give me anything back. And I had to really sit in that space. And that was probably the lowest I'd been in a long time since I'd been doing this work. And I had to put my mentor pants on at the time and be like, okay, how would I navigate a client through this difficult moment? And I just sat with it and I was like, I need to have a conversation with her about this, and we need to air this out. So I just sat her down and we had a really deep conversation. And what I needed from her was what I needed when I was younger, was for her to say, I see you. I understand why you're doing it. And I'm grateful that you've done what you've done. And I'm sorry I couldn't show up for you at this time. And we had that conversation, and it was really healing for both of us. And I think, I don't know about the women in your life, but mine lacked boundaries. That was something that was really so deeply ingrained. And that's something, again, with my healing, that I've been very conscious of creating through every stage of my life, because again, I've been a chronic people pleaser and a self-sacrificer for the needs of others in a way that was so toxic, because I was so resentful for it, but I would do it anyway. I'd be like, oh, of course I've got to do, well, I've got to do the thing, I've got to save everyone, haven't I? I've got to protect everyone. It was like wounded feminine, toxic masculine. Honestly, it was a right old shit show, to be honest. But it's funny, isn't it? All of the cycles. And I think this is, again, the depth that we're speaking about, isn't it? Is all of these lovely moments that create richness, I think, for sure. But I guess in your journey, obviously you've gone through lots of healing, and I want to talk about the relationship thing as well, because you share a lot on socials about your incredible partner. I'd love to dive into that on this as well. But just before we go into that, where would you say your real moment was? Like where you were able to use your voice and give yourself that permission to shine.
I would say it was about 2.5 years ago. It was actually right about the time I met my now partner as well. But I finally started choosing me. I was like, I'm choosing me above all else. I will never abandon myself again. Like that is the worst possible thing that could happen. And I'm okay with losing people, and I'm okay. And I just got really just in that space. And even with my partner, when I would speak, he isn't somebody who understood verbal abuse or experienced it or anything. But he was able to give me space to where I'd be like, I need to have this hard conversation with you, but my body is shaking. Like it's literally trying to release right now. And so I need grace because, quote, like this shouldn't be hard, but for me, it's hard, right? It might not seem like it should be hard to you, but this is really hard. And now it's not a problem at all, but he was able to be the mirror and give me space to do that and to show up through that. And again, continuing to choose myself, that if he wanted to leave because of whatever I needed to bring forward or whatever wasn't aligning with me, then I still chose me. And that was truly the first time in my life that I wasn't going to change who I was for anybody. So
That's so lovely. And yeah, I just wonder, because obviously you said that the moment that you were able to see the patterns with the previous partners that you'd had and like how that carried up from childhood, what would you say? Would you say there was a moment when you met your partner that you felt like he was a different version, or was you looking for someone? Like, how did that interaction happen?
we met at the gym, like the only place we probably could have honestly met. He was in, I was in Montana at the time, and he was there for work. And I wasn't ready. And I told him, like, we met and it was, you could feel the connection, and there was something different, and I knew it. Like, I knew there was something different. Um, but I also right away was like, I'm like, I need some space, I need time. I wasn't ready. So we kept talking, we worked out together some, and I had a really good friend of mine, and he goes, Natalia, this person's different. Don't push him away. Just be open. Like, I know, like, I can tell you really, really do like him. So it's like, okay, you have a point. And so that's kind of what I said. And he gave me space and ended up taking a job. I'd been wanting to move away for a really long time. Like, it was kind of where I was also hitting a wall of like, I need to get out of this place. I need to expand. Like, so it all aligned perfectly. He ended up taking a job in Colorado, which is somewhere I'd been wanting to move. And I told him we would do long distance. So for about 5 months, I had the time that I needed and the space, and I would visit and my heart would feel free. And I knew that, like, the universe was just kind of synchronizing things. When I was gone, the long distance, you have to communicate. And so it actually became a really big catalyst for a lot of things I was working on healing. And I also just spent a lot of time alone, which is the time that I had been wanting in the first place. So it was like I was brought to him, and I also was given my space, and it just played out beautifully. And when I moved because I chose me, no matter what, how it played out. And obviously we're still together. So it played out beautifully in that way too. But um yeah, it was just a series of synchronicities and allowing me to be ready for when I moved than I was in a place where I was fully ready and had the time that I'd been needing. So
Oh, I love that so much. And I think it's so beautiful, because I think for the work that we do, to be in that real anchored space of loving yourself so much that you met someone that actually could return that to you, that's just so beautiful, isn't it? And especially with, experiencing a divorce and, having kids, there's an extra layer of I guess there's more, isn't there? You've got an extension of you already existing in the material world. So it's like there's more love that needs to be there, more protection, and I guess I can understand even more so that there's, yeah, more variables that need to be met, isn't there, than just, oh, he's nice, like, it's like there's actually, no, my heart and my life and my family are the most important things to me right now. So if I'm not getting that met in return, then it's not good enough. And I think it almost seems like you really led with your feminine energy there, to just surrender into that space and to allow the universe to give you the space that you needed, but also for him to hold you, I think, in that space. That's so wonderful to hear that, yeah, he was just so understanding and open, and that you both all sort of like sunk into each other almost, which is really nice.
yeah, we just picked an anniversary date. Like, we didn't have a date that, was the date we started. It just was a progressive flow. And I will say it to this day that I know that my move and I know the healing I've done has made me a better mother. And despite, obviously there's co-parenting in 2 different states now. But all of the growth that has happened and everything I needed to do to be the mother that I actually wanted to be, like, I could say that I did. And that was my biggest goal. And they have a mother they deserve. And I know there was times in their life where I wasn't the person that I wished that I was or wanted to be. And yeah, so there was definitely a lot that went into all of that.
Oh, I love that so much, and really happy to hear that for you as well, because I think in this space with entrepreneurship, especially for women, I've come across a lot of females that are single because they've had divorces and or they've had altercations with men that haven't gone the way they wanted to, or they don't trust men still, because they're so heavily in that um I wouldn't even say wounded feminine, but I would say they just hold themselves in such a high regard that maybe men find them intimidating, and I feel like it's wonderful to hear there's beautiful relationships for a lot of people. Now, I do believe that um, there is an element in people that, one, if you don't want a relationship, that's obviously completely understandable.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely that. And also, I think it's a belief thing on what you believe from the situations you've been in, right? And I think you attract what you are and what you feel. And yeah, I think that this is where I feel like the feminine energy shift is starting to happen, because I think women are realizing that we can be these powerful women in our businesses and in life, but equally you can surrender to someone. And I think that that's the kind of space, isn't it, that we kind of, if you want a relationship, that's the beautiful thing. And I feel like, from my understanding of it, we do need that divine masculine to hold that space. So I feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, I feel like that's so lovely to see that so evidently in your relationship. It's wonderful. And I feel like the relationships that I see in my life that are beautiful and synchronized like that, it's for that reason. They've met that divinity within the partnership. And
Mhm.
yeah, I've noticed in myself, even just, I mean, I've had a very challenging, I wouldn't say challenging even, I haven't dated very much in my life because of being so hyper independent, that now I've started to like embark on this journey more so. And even recently, just kind of seeing myself shift, and like I've made some real healing progress really, really recently, just feeling like I can surrender fully now. And I feel like
Mm.
that's something that I just hadn't had before. And I feel like I've always done this now to then call in that person instead of doing it the other way around. Because I feel like that's what I was doing before, is like, oh, when I meet someone, I'll surrender into them if they're the right person. Whereas I've made this kind of conscious or unconscious shift where I'm like, no, I can let go now of the hyper independence. That part's gone. It's like I'm surrendering into the next stage of my journey. And I think yeah, I guess it's how the universe works, right? I feel like from doing that work and then have this conversation with you, I'm like, yeah, I feel like that's the right shift that I've made there.
Mm. That's so beautiful. And I agree. I know there can be a lot of controversy about, we attract what we are, but I do believe that because it could be on a subconscious level, right? You don't realize you're attracting these things. And so I think that it's beautiful that you're allowing yourself to be in that space, and also the acknowledgement of you can be this beautiful powerhouse woman who could even be the breadwinner, but it doesn't mean you can't also surrender to your partner and soften and drop in. And that's what we're craving, right? Is
Mm,
that surrender. And something I know that I speak to a lot of women I work with and have told myself too is, like, when you keep, telling yourself that you're choosing that person in this moment. And when you just keep being present, which we tend not to do if we are, hyper independent, like, oh, we're never focused on the present most of the time. But when you are, there's no regrets there. So that fear of, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Like, it's easier to make that fade away and just trust in the moment, in that surrender. Um, like, I feel like I will be with my person for the rest of this life on earth. But if that was not the case, there's not a moment that I would regret the surrender and the dropping in and that connection. And I think that's what's important.
that's so beautiful. And I completely agree with you. And I think as you were speaking, I kind of really felt myself drop into my body as you were saying it. So it's so funny how, like you just have the powerful thing of connection, isn't it? Like I could feel you um I guess energetically, taking us on that journey, which is probably why you're incredible at what you do. And I'd love for you to kind of speak more on your work and how that works, and kind of, I guess, as well, your offers, if you'd like to share that as well.
Of course, I would love to. Thank you. Right now, there are currently 3 ways that you can work with me. The first is my Divine Retreat that I'm co-hosting. It's in October 9th through the 14th in Sedona. And I'm co-hosting it with this beautiful woman. I've actually known her in and out of my life since I was 17. But it's the divine masculine and feminine. It's the blending of that. So I am doing more of the divine feminine with breath work and sisterhood and sound healing and different things like that. She is doing more of the divine masculine and raw and powerful, and including boudoir shoots in it. So it's going to be this beautiful intertwining of sisterhood. And there's only, I think, 7 spots left available for that. But I'm really excited about that. I love the making sure to integrate in person, because I do everything online, and I just know how powerful it is to do that. And the second way to work with me is I do have just 2 one-on-one leadership spaces open. These are for leaders who are like 6 figures and above, who want really a deep dive into the alchemizing of mind, body, soul, and leadership with one-on-one support. That also includes that ticket to that retreat currently. And the last way to work with me is the Align and Successful Mastermind. Right now, I have it open at a founder's rate for the 2.0 version that's opening in June 19th. And that is a space where I truly feel like the connections that you make and the growth that happens is worth the entire investment, where it's not just about that life and business that feels as good as it looks, but we get to be witnessed in our expansion and in the vulnerability and the healing. And from personal experience, I know some of my biggest healing has come from putting myself in those rooms and allowing myself to just be seen in all of it. And so from that place, that's where we grow our businesses and our lives, from a place that actually feels aligned. And that is a 12-month container as well. So those are the offerings that I currently have open.
Oh, I love that so much, and they sound incredible as well. And I really feel I can really feel that wellness healing, like you're such a healer naturally. Like I just feel it in the way that you just how you're coming across. It's really lovely. And I feel like when I first jumped on the call with you, I feel like you've got that you kind of allow more to unfold as I've spent the time with you, which has been really beautiful to kind of go on a journey with you. I feel like it's been really lovely to have that experience. And I feel like for some reason, when you're speaking, I can see sand. And I don't know if that's any relevance to you at all, but I can see like a desert. I don't know if that is relevant at all
I love that you say sand. I am very much like the beach, the ocean. I'm a shores personality. If you know human designs, I'm a shores, which is where like the environments collide, right? They intertwine. So like the shore and the
or.
water. So that's what I picture when I think of sand, as just being right on the edge of 2 environments they're intertwining, like the masculine and feminine, those as well.
Mm.
So, and I do energy healing as well. So I love that you just are able to feel that and reflect that back to me as well, because I believe we're extremely powerful beings, and I want everybody to be able to feel that power that they have within them.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like whoever embarks into your space will have that real awakening, especially for, women in business that have never embarked on maybe this type of spiritual experience. I feel like you're about to just mind blown a whole load of people, which is absolutely incredible. So I do
Thank
urge anyone
you.
that's listening to look into your world, and definitely follow you on social media as well, which I'll get you to send me all of your
Sure.
links and everything that I can put in the show notes as well. I wanted to ask you, do you know what your sun and rising is?
Oh my goodness. I have it on my screen on my computer and I can't remember it now. Oh, I wonder. Hold on. My sign is Sagittarius, but my mouse isn't gonna work. Hold on. I was like, I know I have it right here. That's something I've been diving in deeper. I'm a Sagittarius sun as well,
So you're Sagittarius sun and rising.
and moon.
Okay.
Oh, and hold on, there we go. Sagittarius sun, Sagittarius moon, and Cancer rising. So
Mm.
I am a healer.
So the minute that you started speaking, I instantly thought you were a Cancer, and I didn't say anything straight away because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna wait and see." But then, as you were speaking on, I was like, "You've got fire in your chart," and I was like, "You're fire and water," and I just knew from speaking to you. And I was like, I wanted to check first before I asked, and I actually thought you might have some Aries when you were speaking about your connection to the masculine, and when you were speaking about the bodybuilding, I was like, "Oh, I wonder if it's there," because Sagittarius, I would say, is the most free out of the fire signs because it's mutable, so it means it obviously ebbs and flows, which connects to your sure personality, like when you're saying in the human design. So yeah, it's so interesting. I love how everything interconnects. It's so beautiful, isn't it, that we have these modalities that we can use that help us find a deeper understanding of ourselves, I think, that which is just really, really lovely. And I love that you lead the breath work. Is that right?
I do also do that.
Yeah, there's something so magical about those spaces for sure. I feel like I had a real spiritual awakening in a breathwork session, and it was just the universe divinely lined it up. It was a friend of mine that does tapping, and she invited me to this breathwork session. And when I was in the session, bearing in mind I'd just embarked on this healing journey, and it was healing your inner child. And luckily, it was on Zoom, because I sobbed and shaked the whole way through, like purged up. It was like an exorcism. That's literally what happened. And I feel like my whole life I've had a knot in my stomach from IBS, but also the emotional trauma that I've held on to my whole life. And that was the first time in my life I've ever felt relief from that.
Oh,
And it hasn't come back. So that breathwork session literally unlocked Pandora's box of my emotions and let it all go out. And then since then, I've been opening more and more and more. And I feel like now there's probably little tiny things that might be closed. And I feel like when they do close, I can open them again because I know how. Whereas before it was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm confused. Whereas I can feel now. And I don't think I ever had access to that before. Like even down to me seeing things when you speak. I feel like these are all gifts that have been unlocked through healing, and then my spirituality is strengthened so much more as a result of, I think, allowing and connecting again to that raw feminine energy that's within me that I feel like I'd silenced for so long. Because I think that's I think what we'll probably all say this, that we have this in us. All of us have these gifts, don't we, of our own degree. And I think when we get still enough and release out the weight of the burdens of our past and our trauma, that everything has space to flourish, which I think is just, yeah, I think that's what it's all for, all of it, for me, for sure. And I think the fact that we get to share our gifts and help other people is just, yeah, an amazing thing. But I have loved speaking with you, and I feel like there's so much more I could ask you about loads of things, but I feel like that was just a really lovely connection, and I feel like people know who you are and what it is you do and where to find you. But I would love for you to share just anything you feel aligned to share, like a soul to soul message.
There's so many things, and this whole conversation has been so beautiful. I would honestly say it's to not try to keep living without fear, but take fear along with you. I know there's so many people who want to do the thing and then they stop themselves out of fear, or they're afraid of the expansion or the unknown, whatever it is. But taking that leap is worth it, and stop thinking the fear is going to go away. Stop thinking that means it's a bad thing. It just is, because your body, you have protectors. They want to protect you and keep you safe, which keeps you small. And you're not meant to be small. You're meant to shine and take up space and be bold. So just name your fear and make friends with it and bring it along for the ride.
I love that so much. Take fear with you.
Yes.
That's an amazing message. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a really beautiful conversation.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it as well.
If this episode resonated with you, please do like, follow, and share with someone that you know would benefit. If you're looking to dive in deeper to becoming your most unapologetic, most authentic, shining self, please do head to my website and join my newsletter, where you will find out about all of my upcoming events and speaking opportunities and all of the things that I have going on. And also, if you would like to work with me, please do drop me a DM on any of my socials or through my website. Love and light.